Welcome to Brave with Lisa YouTube channel. My name is Lisa Bruton and my goal is to inspire you to live bravely in that unique rhythm of grace that God has designed just for you. On this channel, we are going to be hearing from amazing people from all different walks of life who are bravely walking in that unique rhythm of grace and calling that God has designed just for them. I know that as we hear their stories, we are going to learn a lot. We're going to find keys that are going to help us to also walk bravely in that unique rhythm of grace and that unique calling that God has just for you and for me. I'm so glad you're here. And today I have the gorgeous Nicci Toomey with me. Now, Nicci is a really special friend of mine, and she is someone who is very authentic and honest, and when she asks you how you're going and you answer like, yeah, she'll be like, no, how are you really going? And she's just someone that when you leave a conversation with her or any time with her, you leave feeling refreshed and inspired. And so I know today, just listening to Nicci and what she has to share, you're gonna leave this conversation feeling refreshed and inspired. So welcome, Nicci.
Thank you, my friend. No pressure at all.
Perform for us. No. Nicci, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what goes on in your world, and what you're passionate about?
Yeah. Well, I'm a wife and a mum. So I'm married to Cam and I have 3 children. I've got Michael, who's 25 and has just made me a granny. And I have Abby and Lucy, who are 17-year-old twins. Our life looks a little bit different, I guess, from the normal family life. My husband's a quadriplegic. He broke his neck when he was 25. And both of our girls live with disabilities. So Abby has quadriplegic cerebral palsy. She can't see or talk or walk. And Lucy has a vision impairment and an intellectual impairment. Which just makes life interesting. So our household, we are very blessed, and our household is actually filled with great people who help us and carry a lot of the load. So don't think I'm some superwoman. I'm not doing it on my own. But we have a lot of people to help us. And what I'm passionate about is I'm passionate about Jesus. I didn't find Jesus until I was almost 37 years old. And when I look back on all those years I had to walk without him, I don't want anybody else to have to do the same. I'm passionate about sharing the hope that a life with Jesus brings to people's lives. And I just want to do that till I die.
Well, you're doing it very well. And I love your family. We've been over for lunches and, just gotten to know your family a bit. And they are just so fabulous and they adore you. And it's such a beautiful family. And I love, I've heard you speak about your family and I love how you say it's different, but it's beautiful. And your life is beautiful and wonderful and full. And so Nicci, I know that you've had another big year, but can you share with us one of the bravest things that you've done this year?
Okay. The bravest thing I've done this year is write a book. And not just write a book, but write a book and publish it in a 4-month period, which is pretty much unheard of. So yes, that's my brave thing for this year.
Oh, well done. Yeah, I have heard that 4 months that just doesn't happen. Can you share a little bit more about the behind the scenes to writing the book?
Well, the behind the scenes. So if we go way back, will I take you where it all started? Maybe.
Yes.
Okay. So in 2016, God gave me 3 dreams in a 2-week period. I'm not a dreamer. I don't get God dreams very often. So when they happen, it's pretty exciting. And he gave me 3 dreams, and they were a glimpse, I believe, of where he wanted me to go, the call that's on my life. So At the time, I was like, yeah, if you want to make that happen, make it happen. And I kind of was like a spoilt teenager and sat back with my arms crossed and said, whatever. And then in 2017, I went to Bible college. I felt like I had this amazing heart knowledge of who God was, but I didn't really understand him intellectually. So I wanted to get a bit more head knowledge around God. So I spent the next 2 years at Bible college. And in the middle of 2017, he gave me another dream to write a book. I saw the book, I saw the cover, I saw the title, the pages, the content, everything. And I actually woke up from that dream thinking, oh my goodness, I've just written a book. So now I really wish I had have just started writing the book that day, but of course I didn't. You know, who does what God tells them to do the second he tells them? If there's anyone out there, I want to meet them. But so I kind of put on the back burner because I thought, well, I'm at college now, you know, I've got to get this done before I can start something new. And I started bits and pieces of it. And then in 2018, I was preparing to graduate college at the end of the year and thinking, will I go on and do further study? And I thought that I would. And then in 2018, I just had word after word after word that that wasn't to be. I was meant to finish college up at the end of the year, and I was meant to write the book. And so 2018, I graduated. 2019, we all know what happened there. And I spent a lot of my time writing that book. I got 60,000 words down of that book. And then I kind of hit just a bit of a wall, I guess, and I couldn't get any further. So I put the book aside at Christmas time at the end of 2019 and thought I'll finish it off in 2020. I'll just give myself a break. And then in April of 2021, is that where I'm at? Oh my gosh, I don't know. Anyway, April this year, I got a word from God. I felt it so clearly in my spirit. I heard it and I wrote it down. And the word was basically, I'm raising up a new era of John the Baptist to make a way for the second coming of Jesus. And I was reading John and studying John at the time. So it made sense that this word would come then. And so I just wrote it down because God's given me words before and I thought that's nice and, you know, gone on with life. And then I had the wildest, it was a Monday night and I couldn't get to sleep. This word just kept coming and coming and coming. And I was like, all right, I'll get up and I'll write it down, you know. So I got up and I came to my desk and I wrote a bit. And I was like, okay, I've written it down. Now I'm going to go back to bed and go to sleep. Couldn't get to sleep. Honestly, I felt like Samuel, you know. God just kept calling me. And he was not going to let me go to sleep. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to get up again. So I got up and I think I actually ended up going to bed at about 1:30 a.m. in the morning. And I had written what I thought to be a whole preach around this word that God had given me about our new John the Baptists. And I thought, oh, well, that's nice. I'm not a preacher, but okay. And I just felt like I'd done what I was meant to do. Went back to bed, got to sleep. Hallelujah. And then in the days, maybe a week after that, I just felt like he kept saying, it's not a preach, it's a book. It's a book. I want you to write a book. And I said, I haven't finished the first book that you asked me to write. So there's no way I'm starting another book, you know. So I was telling God what the agenda was and when and how I would do things. And I just put it aside and he actually let me. He let me just put it aside. And then at the very beginning of June, I was meeting with a writing coach to get the first book finished and completed. And I think 2 days before I was due to meet her, he like picked it up and he brought it to me again. And he was like, this is the book I want you to write. So when I met with her, I said, look, plans changed. I think there's a new book and I haven't even started it, but this is what I've got to do. So yeah, so in the process of that, he gave me a publishing date of the 28th of September. We were at the beginning of June, and it was just a crazy, crazy ride.
And so there's so much there's something behind the yes though, isn't it? So like he kept confirming it and bringing it to you, and then saying yes. You're aware that you're saying yes to time, you're saying yes to putting other things on hold, because when you say yes to that, you're saying no to other things. So did you kind of go through a list, or was it just like, okay, let's just do this?
I think it's a bit, as you were speaking then, I was thinking of, the salvation call. And when we actually say yes, the original yes, hey, that then by the time we've got to the place where we can say yes, he's done the work. He's done the work and he's made the yes easy. You never hear someone saying, oh, it was so hard to say yes to the salvation call. It was just like, I just had to put my hand up. So I think once we get to that point of being able to say yes, he has gone ahead and made it easy for us. But there were all those things. I had so many questions because I've never written anything. I've not studied at university. I failed year 12, like dismally. And I just felt unqualified. I felt so underqualified to write the kind of book that I thought he wanted me to write. So we did have a wrestle in the process.
Yeah, and I think we can all relate to that. I don't feel qualified, God, and I think you've got the wrong person.
Yes.
And did you find, because I mean, I've been there too, did you find that as you stepped out and as you said yes and you began writing, that actually there were things laying there that God had placed in you, like gifts and talents that you didn't actually realize were there?
I don't know if I had, well, maybe I realized that I was qualified and I realized that I did have the gifts and talents to do it because he's given them to me. Obviously, he's not going to ask me to do something that he won't then equip me to do. So I did discover that. But what I also found is I honestly felt like I was Alice tumbling down a rabbit hole, right? And all these images were flying past me like I was participating, but I was not in control. And so I do actually feel like the whole process, all I needed to do was turn up at my laptop every day and write down what he told me to write down. And so I feel like the whole book is actually a prophetic message from God to the believers. Yeah, so I, it almost feels bad taking any credit for it.
So did you enjoy it, Nicci? Did you enjoy sitting at your computer and just listening to God and writing what he showed you?
I loved that. I love any time spent with God. And I'd have to say that those probably the 3 months out of the 4 were just wonderful, wonderful time spent with God. We were so close. Like I felt like we were like this. Every day I was just getting up to do work with God, and it felt amazing. In amongst the struggles, obviously.
And so the 3 months were amazing, had that intimacy, you're co-writing with God. And then what about the 4th month?
The 4th month it was hard because I'm working with a writing coach who knows how to publish a book. I'd had lots of grief around the book as well and lots of doubts because in my mind, a real book isn't self-published. A real book is on paper and mine is an ebook. A real book is so many pages long and mine is a short book. You'll read it in under 2 hours. So I had all these wrestles I was going along with God thinking, you're not even asking me to write a real book. Sorry to all my author friends out there who are cringing at my statements, but that's how I felt. That was just my naivety in the whole process. But then to get to that last month, you're looking at deadlines, and I had the deadline of the 28th of September. I'm on the steepest learning curve you can honestly put yourself on, because I'm self-published. So luckily I had Fiona, my coach, and she was, helping me along the way. But I had to work out Amazon and KDP, and then I had to ask people to endorse my work. I had to actually send it to them and say, could you please read this? And if you like it, could you write something nice about it? Which I almost, to be honest, didn't do. I almost thought my book doesn't need endorsements. I just won't do that part. And then God had a little talk to me, and he said, why? Of what are you so scared of? What are you so scared of? So in the end, I just sent it out, and what happened, and it was fine. But it was all those things. I think once I had to start putting myself out there, I couldn't hide behind my laptop with God and just write words. I had to actually put myself out there a bit and market it. I hate that marketing side of things, but I just had to remember that this was a word God wanted to get into the world. And so it was my job to make that happen. And that meant every single step of making that happen. So, yeah.
Oh, well done. And so when God asked you, what are you scared of? Were you able to pinpoint it?
Yes. And it's often the thing I always come back to. And I write about it in my book. I was scared of what people would think, and we as Christians have to not be bothered by what people think. John the Baptist was not bothered by what people thought about him when he walked into town looking and sounding like he looked and sounded. And the message that he brought, it was a strong message. So he was not bothered. And we need to get to a place where we can make God our audience of one. And while I think most of the time I do an all right job of that, there are, I'm human. I am a sinner, bought by the grace of Jesus. And I get it wrong some days. And that was the day I was getting it wrong. I was so worried about what other people might say or think that I just didn't want to show anyone. I just wanted to let it slip into the world and see what God would do with it.
Oh, I love how honest you are, Nicci. And I think, we can all relate to that too, hey, being concerned about what other people will think when we do that outside the box thing, or we present something that we've put our heart and soul into. So what would be how do you get over it? How do you address it and kind of move past that fear and awareness that there is that fear of what will other people think?
It's so simple, yet it's tricky, right? But you just refocus. I truly believe that our number one focus needs to be Jesus. We need to have our eyes above what's going on around us. We need to just be totally consumed with him and walking close with him. And that's the way God will then readjust your feelings and your thoughts. I love it in John where the disciple John is leaning on Jesus's chest, and that's what we're meant to do. That's the posture we're meant to take. We're meant to be so close to Jesus that we could hear his heartbeat. And when we are, that's all we can hear. The voices in our head are drowned out by the love of Jesus. So you just have to get yourself back there as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's so wise. I've heard a number of people saying, particularly those who write or speak and whatnot, they said you really got to leave your ego at the door. And when you come and present and do these type of things, and ego can be what will people think, because it's not about us, it's about the person that's reading the book. It's, and like you said, that audience of one. So what's happened since, Nicci? So you've released the book, you did the marketing. How's it been since releasing the book?
It was great. The first week was great. We made #1 on Amazon, which, really, it doesn't really mean anything. Just to let you know that. Like, but to be honest, in my world, I've actually felt really stuck. I've felt really stuck as to what I'm meant to do next. I think I know what I'm meant to do next, but for some reason, I just can't get myself to do it. And I think it's a bit of it feels like a bit of a slump. I had this amazing 4 months with God and the Holy Spirit, and just being shown so clearly where I was going and what I was meant to do. And now it feels like the curtains dropped back down and I can't quite see what's outside the window. So yeah, I've been a bit stuck.
And again, your honesty is so refreshing, and I felt that too. You, especially if I've done a big retreat or we've launched something new, and then and it's been exciting, and you, like you said, there's that intimacy with God, and you're co-laboring with Him, and you're seeing all these amazing things happen, and then it finishes, and it's like you come down off a high. And for me, my body feels really tired as well, and so it's like a physical fatigue, but also I feel like for me there's like this grace, but I don't always realize it, of just rest. And something that he said to me, because I always like to know the next thing too, Nicci. What's the next big thing, God? Where are you what's the next dream? And he said to me, because I kept badgering him and asking him, and he said, Lisa, it's my grace. It's because of my grace that I'm not telling you what's next yet, because actually it's either I want you to rest, or I don't want you to take the focus of where you're at now and put it onto what's next, because it's not time to shift focus. And it's just trusting Him that we're not going to miss that thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think it's our human nature. We're brought up in society that is like, what are you doing? Who are you? By the title that you hold or the job that you do. And the moment that we don't have a worldly purpose or something that we can say, I'm doing this, we think, oh my goodness, I'm doing nothing, and our value goes down, I think, in our minds. So we think that we have to be continually on that, on the wheel of life, just scurry, when God actually does, He wants us just to breathe and rest. And when He wants us to go, we have to be ready to go.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's that it's knowing that rhythm that He has you in that season, because He does shift gears, doesn't He? And like you've experienced, He'll shift it really quickly.
Yes. And I don't think I'd be able to work 12 months. So a 12-month period of those 4 months back to back.
No, that's it too, isn't it?
And so He is kind.
Gracious, yeah. And so we've just been talking about not worrying about what the next thing is, but I'm going to ask you, what's happening with the other book that you've placed on the shelf or just put aside for the moment? Is that continuing to stay there until He says pick it up?
Yeah, it's just staying there. It's I am starting to wonder if it was a book just for me for this moment. Like, I do believe that one day it will be published, but I don't feel any great pressure to get it out. And I actually, in the last probably couple of months, I've been thinking, because as I was writing that book, I received such healing through it. So the book is a snapshot. It's a memoir of sorts, but it's written in two perspectives. So it's written in my perspective and then God's perspective. So it's made up of she chapters and he chapters. And each she chapter is a snapshot of my life or a memory I have. And the he chapter that comes straight after it is what God says about that time in my life. And through what he has been saying about some times that were really difficult, he's brought healing to me and understanding that I didn't have before. And I think that, everything we walk through in life is just a part of his process of developing us for what it is he would have us actually do. And I think that those 60,000 words that are sitting there is definitely a part of that process of just preparing me to be the absolute best I can be in the image that he's created. So it's sitting there for now. Maybe one day someone will read it.
I very much hope to read it, Nicci. But I've watched you and I have noticed a change and a shift in your confidence, in clarity on who you are and where God's taking you since you've written this book that no one else has read yet. And so I have heard that, when people write books, it's often for them, like it heals them. So I just think that's extraordinary, but I do believe we'll all get to read that book one day.
One day.
One day. Something that I've found, and God's been talking to me about, is so often we will discount, so for example, writing a book or doing something because we see other people doing it and they're like, well, they're doing it, so I won't do it, or they've started that or they've done that, so therefore I can't do it. And there's like this intimidation and then disqualifying of ourselves. Have you noticed that as well?
I think so. I think you always, when you're writing a book, the first thing you do is you go and see what other books are out there that look or sound like yours, might look or sound. But I have learned that that's not necessarily a bad thing. If there's another book out there saying the same thing as yours, that's not a bad thing. And I think it's a fact, it's not a saying, that a person needs to hear something 7 times before they'll actually remember it. So I think that in my process, I've just decided to become one of the 7 times,
Ooh,
and I just
that.
want to, my passion is for people to understand the hope of Jesus. I'm not going to lead everyone to that hope, but I will be one of the voices they've heard along the way, and that's my life's goal. And I can't, all the things I talk about, it's not new. Everyone's been saying it for a long time. It's out of a book that's over 2,000 years old, from a man who's over 2,000 years old. There's nothing new about it, but I want to keep speaking it, because eventually people will get to that point where they're like, oh, okay.
Oh, Nicci, that was so beautifully put. Oh, yes.
We'll have to blame the Holy Spirit for that.
Thank you for that, Holy Spirit. I will be watching this and rewinding and listening to that part of the conversation again. Nicci, how can people get a hold of your book? Because I've read it and I loved it, and then I tried to review it and I didn't know how. So this is my review now. It was so relatable. You are so warm and honest in your book, yet you just bring home some real gold, and it really did shift something in my heart and gave me a fresh perspective. So how can people get a hold of your book?
Okay, so it is available on Amazon as a Kindle download, which scares a lot of people away. And, it scared me too. I wanted a book I could pick up and hold, but it's not that at the moment. So you can download it on Amazon for less than the cost of a cup of coffee, I think. And I am planning to bring it out in a paper form early in the new year, I would hope. And yeah, and it'll be there. So you can find it on Amazon. And yes, reviews are lovely. Good, bad, or otherwise. I don't mind what kind of review it is. Tell me honestly what you think. But if you can leave a review, that's a big bonus for any author. Just take that little bit of gold for yourself every time you read an author's book. We could do with all the reviews we can get, because it's a bit of a lonely old world.
Yeah, I can only imagine, Nicci. And if someone wants to reach out to you, because I know you also speak, and I love how you speak and how you communicate. So how can they find you?
They can find me at my website, so it's niccitoomey.com. And also on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. If you search Nicci Toomey, you'll find me. But my handle is real life. No, real. What's my handle, Lisa? It's my real faith, hope, love. See, you don't have to be perfect for God to use you.
You really don't. I feel like I'm a prime example of that. Oh, friend, I love you. I love the gold that you brought. And like I said, I always feel inspired and refreshed by you. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on Brave with Lisa. I hope that it has inspired or impacted you in a small or large way. Feel free to comment, to subscribe, and share with some friends. And please join us next week on another conversation we will have here on this channel on Brave with Lisa.